and welcome to the Raising Kellan podcast. Today is May the 30th, and my name is Marsh, and I blog at raisingkellan.org, where we curate resources for families experiencing disabilities. On today's episode 144, I chat with Jess Ronne, who is an accomplished author, podcaster, as well as the associate producer of the documentary Unseen. Today's episode is a continuation of our previous episode 143, when we chatted with Dr. Megan Schwamm from the Tennessee Caregiver Coalition, when we concentrated on the topic of respite and how this is vital for caregivers. As always, remember the content on this podcast is for your information only, and if you seek advice for your specific situation, to contact a trained professional. So grab that cup of coffee, put your feet up, and get ready for some awesome conversation. So today I am joined by Jess Ronne. She is an author, speaker, podcast host of Coffee with Caregivers. Jess, I can't even tell you how I've come to know your name. Definitely your books are talked about highly, and that is Sunlight Burning at Midnight, as well as your blog, Jess Plus the Mess. I guess the reason I kind of gravitated towards you was the fact that you are from Tennessee or lived in Tennessee at one point, and just really wanting to know more about you, your family, Lucas, as well as the Lucac Project.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm not from Tennessee, but I did live in Tennessee for 7 years, and now we're back in Michigan. That's a big question about me and my family. I am first and foremost a mom to 8 children, including Lucas, who is now 20 years old and will require full-time care for the rest of his life. I'm an author of multiple books. I am the founder of the Lucac Project, which is a nonprofit that serves special needs families with recognition, resources, and respite. Associate producer of the Unseen documentary and also the Uncertain documentary, which we're currently filming right now. Podcast host at Coffee with Caregivers. I think that about covers it.
Lucas, can you tell us more about Lucas, please?
Yeah, when I went to what I thought was a 20-week ultrasound appointment for him, they discovered that he had experienced a stroke in utero and there was very little hope. It was suggested that we terminate and try again. We did not do that. We continued with the pregnancy, and he was born on August 12, 2004. And after undergoing brain surgery and spending 2 weeks in the NICU, we were sent home with our miracle baby. And I honestly didn't even view myself as a special needs mom. I was just like, we're going to hunker down. We're going to do everything that we possibly have to do to make him like normal, quote unquote. And that's what we did. It got him enrolled in all the therapies, and we just did everything we could do to give him the best chance to live a long, fulfilling life. And a couple of years after he was born, my husband actually passed out at home and was rushed to the local ER, where they discovered a baseball-sized brain tumor. And at this point, we had 3 young children. Jason would go on to fight brain cancer for 3 years, and he would pass away in 2010. And at that point, I was a young mom with 4 young children, including Lucas, who was very challenging. And that period was very challenging because not a lot of people necessarily wanted to step in and help with him because of his profound disabilities.
You talk about respite and how that is so important for families like ours, and how sometimes we don't always know how to put that into words. Let's delve more into that respite and what that means for families like ours, Jess.
Yeah, honestly, when Lucas was younger, it wasn't as challenging because he was still cute. He was still manageable. And, you know, a 6-year-old in diapers isn't that big of a deal to people. So they will step in and help, you know, especially if you can pay them. As Lucas aged and he was, you know, 13, 14, 15 and began to go through puberty, and he's still in diapers, and now he's nonverbal and he's strong and he's screaming and he's hurting people. Like, nobody wants to step in and help in that situation. And that's just detrimental to families like ours, because we just slink further and further into isolation because the world just isn't made for families like ours. It's not very accommodating. It's not very welcoming, and it's not very welcoming to our children. And so we just kind of stay home and hunker down, and our house almost begins to feel like a tomb. And so to relay that message to the world and try to explain, like, due to our mental health, like, massively deteriorating, we really need society to recognize families like ours and step in and provide respite services, because there's just something about those consistent breaks where we can breathe, where we can take a nap, where we can go for a walk and not have to constantly be on to care for our child, that is just so beneficial for our mental health.
Yeah, in our lives, I think as 24/7 caregivers, respite is that charge of energy that we need, that can carry us forward. And I know a lot of my friends often say, you know, it takes a village, but sometimes where is the village? Because
Exactly.
And I don't have an answer for that. I just don't. And that was why when I heard about the Lucac Project and how you guys, you know, went about getting the message out, that appealed to me because it was direct in what was being asked. So having said that, Jess, can you tell us more about the Lucac Project itself?
Yeah, the Lucac Project was born out of our desperate need for respite. We were living in rural Tennessee. There weren't any like nonprofits or organizations that offered respite. My husband ended up in ER twice with panic attacks that resembled heart attacks. Nobody would help with Lucas because he was extremely challenging. And we just thought, oh my word, if we're struggling this much, there has to be other special needs families who are also struggling and just need a break. And so we launched the Lucac Project, and our mission statement is to provide recognition, resources, and respite to special needs families. We do this through a number of programs, the 2 documentaries that I mentioned, Unseen and Uncertain, the podcast. We also ship care packages to caregivers nationwide that just, you know, show that we care, and it's a box full of goodies to hopefully encourage caregivers to keep going, because when you're seen, it's like that glimmer of hope. And what else do? We have a resource database on our website that's completely free, a caregiver support group on Facebook that has over 2,000 parent caregivers who are encouraging one another. And we are launching our first Meet and Mingle Club here in West Michigan this July, which will be for individuals ages 13 to 40 who are disabled. They can come and enjoy a free day of activities, crafts, movies, all kinds of fun things, and their parents can take a break. And so we're really excited to get that off the ground and at least offer a little bit of respite to a very unseen demographic, especially as I was saying, as these children age, it becomes more and more challenging to find people who will provide respite for families.
That leads me on to your podcast, Coffee with Caregivers. And I had the privilege of listening to episode 62 with Alice Foran. Mm-hmm. And whilst listening to her, I got a glimpse of, you know, how things were back 40 years ago. And Jess, it deeply troubles me right now with all the changes happening as far as Medicaid is concerned. You know, sometimes as a parent, you do need a glimmer at hope. And I definitely would recommend listening to episode 62 of Coffee with Caregivers and listen to Alice as she describes her trailblazing years. I know that episode was really uplifting to me.
She was a warrior. And fun little fact, that is Reba McEntire's sister. Yep, the country singer. So that was really fun just to learn that little fact about her. But yeah, there wasn't much when she gave birth to her daughter. And she didn't really necessarily rely on the government. She got to work. And I think that is a lesson for all of us to maybe stop putting so much faith and hope in the government and to roll up our sleeves and come together and get to work, because we need these resources for our children.
I would like to kind of go a little into the topic of faith and grief, and perhaps how that can intersect at times. Just your thoughts on that, Jess.
Faith and grief. For me, it's always been faith and grief and surrender and obedience, like all sort of work together. So, grief leads to hopefully surrender and an acceptance of what is. I mean, that is like the final stage of grief. Surrendering into what is and what is not. And faith is moving forward in obedience into a space that is still largely unknown, and trusting that the next step will reveal itself. And that's just been sort of the rhythms that have constantly played out in my life, is landing in this place of grief over the acknowledgement of Luke being profoundly disabled, grief over losing my husband, and then falling into that surrender and saying, Lord, I trust you with this next step. So I will walk forward in faith, and you open and close doors according to your will. And that's led to some pretty remarkable things in my life with books and films and the nonprofit. And even last night, I just posted on Facebook about how I feel like I have another book that was just downloaded into my heart, that the Lord's like, all right, it's time to write this book now. And so that's an open door to me. So I will begin writing this book and trust that somebody will want to publish it. It's just been a beautiful process of learning to trust the cycle, really, of surrender and then walking forward in obedience.
And seeing the documentary that you discussed or talked about, and then you mentioned Uncertain, how can families get to view the movies or documentaries? How is that possible?
If you head to caregiverdoc.com and sign up for our newsletter, we offer free showings quite often. So just sign up there. Uncertain is not finished. We are probably a good 2 or 3 years out from finishing that documentary. And that will explore the housing crisis for disabled adults and their families. And yes, and how desperately we need more long-term solutions for families. And if you head to uncertaindoc.com and even sign up for updates, you'll be in the loop about everything that we have going on with that film as well.
Jess, I can't thank you more than enough for spending your morning with us and just telling us about your books, about your podcast, Coffee with Caregivers, as well as the documentary and the Lucac Project. Are there any words of encouragement that you would like to leave us with?
Well, that's a good segue. I wrote a book called Caregiving with Grit and Grace, which is 100 days of hope and encouragement for caregivers, and caregivers in any capacity, really. But the book just offers, 5-minute devotions, meditations for caregivers, because caregivers are really busy, to read and download into their spirits. And hopefully it will provide a little bit of that hope encouragement for them to continue throughout their days, and to understand that what they are accomplishing in their work as a caregiver is really significant work when you are called to care for another human being who cannot care for themselves.
Thank you so much for your time, and can't wait to watch the movie, and just the best to you and your family.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening along on the podcast today. If you would like to listen on further, check out the previous episode, that's 143, which is Why We Need Respite as Caregivers, which was recorded with Dr. Megan Schwamm with the Tennessee Caregiver Coalition. We would love for you to rate and review this episode and share with friends as well. And if you would like to contact us, my email is raisingkellan, that's KELLAN @gmail.com. As always, remember, get to the top of your mountain. This is Marsh Naidu signing off.